It's always interesting to see two all-time NFL legends having played on the same team together many, many years ago.
500th career touchdown pass by Brett Favre, and it's the first Favre to Moss.
For every well-known tandem that the league has seen, there's also a pair of NFL all-time greats who, rather forgettably, hooked up at some point in their respective careers. So prepare to have your mind blown as we present to you 10 legendary NFL teammates who you probably didn't even remember played together. Deion Sanders and Ray Lewis. Primetime played for 5 teams in his career, but most of us only associate Sanders with the Atlanta Falcons, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Dallas Cowboys. Sanders had his best years with those 3 franchises and won a ring with both the 49ers and Cowboys. Of course, it's also not hard to remember that one-year stint with Washington in 2000 before his initial retirement. Now, you kids might actually be shocked to hear this, but Sanders actually played for the Baltimore Ravens in 2004 and 2005. So, the best cornerback of all time actually had the honor of playing on the same defense as one of the best middle linebackers of all time in Ray Lewis. Turns out, Lewis actually recruited Sanders to join a legendary Baltimore defense that also consisted of Ed Reed and Terrell Suggs. And so, Primetime and Lewis donned the purple and black together for 2 seasons. How cool is that? Now, Sanders was nothing close to the star that had struck all that fear into opposing quarterbacks many years earlier. But he did post 5 interceptions and 10 pass defenses in his 2 seasons with Lewis's Ravens. So, his return to the field wasn't all that bad. Emmitt Smith and Larry Fitzgerald. In today's edition of That Really Happened, we present to you the story of the NFL's all-time rushing leader playing with the best wide receiver of his era. Smith, the all-time NFL leader of every major rushing category, played 13 seasons with the Cowboys from 1990 to 2002. He led the team to 3 Super Bowl championships over a 4-year span from 1992 to 95. But in 2003, Dallas released Smith from his contract following his first non-1,000-yard rushing season since his rookie year. The Arizona Cardinals scooped up Smith on a 2-year deal in free agency. And 1 year later, they drafted Pittsburgh product Larry Fitzgerald with the number 3 selection in 2004. Smith's final season of football took place during Fitzgerald's rookie year. One legend out, another future legend in.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. You can't explain that.
Smith tallied a respectable 937 yards and 9 touchdowns in his swan song year, and Fitzgerald led the Cards with 58 catches for 780 yards and 8 touchdowns. Talk about passing the torch. Brett Favre and Randy Moss. It's hard to picture Favre and Moss as longtime teammates for a variety of reasons. In reality, however, the 2 Hall of Famers spent less than a season together with the Minnesota Vikings in 2010. Favre's Packers and Moss's Vikings had so many memorable battles from 1998 to 2005. Who can forget Moss's celebration and Joe Buck's timeless reaction when he caught a touchdown at Lambeau during Minnesota's 2004 wildcard victory over the Pack?
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss, and it's unfortunate that we had that on our air live.
Also, you may recall that Favre pushed for Green Bay to acquire Moss from the Oakland Raiders in 2007, but the latter wound up getting traded to the New England Patriots. And the rest, as they say, is history. Favre ended up playing 2 years with the Vikings from 2009 to 2010. But his dream of playing alongside Moss finally became a reality in the latter season when the Vikings reacquired the future Hall of Famer in a midseason trade with the Patriots. Now, unfortunately, the 2 men played just 4 games together that year, hence why it's pretty easy to forget this short-lived partnership. Moss actually grew frustrated with the team and was later placed on waivers and eventually picked up by the Tennessee Titans. But hey, at least Favre got to live out his dream of throwing to Moss for 4 games. And number 4 even threw a couple of touchdowns to him. Jerry Rice and Sean Alexander. The GOAT of wide receivers spent his very best years with the San Francisco 49ers, which spanned from 1985 to 2000. Rice, of course, was instrumental in helping San Fran win 3 Super Bowls during his tenure there. Rice then spent his remaining good years with the Raiders, even helping them reach Super Bowl 37. But did you know that Rice actually played with the Seattle Seahawks of all teams? Hard to picture, we know, but we have images to prove it. Rice was traded from Oakland to Seattle in the midst of the 2004 season, thus uniting the future Hall of Famer with a future MVP and Seahawks running back Sean Alexander. Rice, of course, was just a shell of his former self at this stage. He caught just 25 passes for 362 yards and a trio of touchdowns in 11 games. It was Alexander, the 2005 league MVP, who anchored the Seahawks offense by rushing for 1,696 yards and 16 touchdowns. Sadly, the short-lived Rice-Alexander dream pairing ended in a thud, with the Seahawks losing 27-20 to the rival St. Louis Rams at home in the wildcard round. Rice would join the Denver Broncos as a free agent in 2005, but he opted to retire before the start of the season. If you're Alexander, it's still gotta be pretty cool to tell people that you had the honor of playing with Rice in his final NFL game. Terrell Owens and Marshawn Lynch. Owens played for 5 teams in his professional NFL career. You folks know it started with the 49ers, of course, and you also recall his short-lived drum-filled 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles, followed by 3 years with the Cowboys. I mean, who can forget the whole "that's my quarterback" press conference? And though it was short and sweet, we all remember his 1-year partnership with Chad Ochocinco and the Cincinnati Bengals in 2010. There totally should have been a reality show on them. Well, we've got a shocker for ya. T.O. actually played 1 season for the Buffalo Bills in 2009, following his surprise release from the Cowboys. And who was on the Bills roster back in 2009? Well, just another legend in Marshawn Beast Mode Lynch. Owens was Buffalo's leading receiver, finishing with 55 catches for 829 yards and 5 touchdowns. Lynch had just 450 rushing yards and 2 scores because Fred Jackson was Buffalo's go-to running back that year. Owens would spend his final NFL season with Cincy in 2010. Lynch was traded to the Seahawks early that season, and what a difference maker that was for Seattle. Brian Dawkins and Champ Bailey. Dawkins and Bailey were 2 of the best defensive backs of their era. You can only wonder what could have been if Dawkins had joined the Denver Broncos somewhat sooner. Dawkins spent the bulk of his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, which spanned from 1996 to 2008. The hard-hitting safety racked up 7 Pro Bowl nods and 34 interceptions in his 13 years with Philly, helping them to a Super Bowl 38 appearance. Bailey was drafted by Washington in 1999, but came to the Mile High City in 2004, in a deal that sent Clinton Portis to DC. Bailey continued to play like one of the game's elite cover corners for the next 9 years in Denver. During the majority of that period, Dawkins was doing his usual thing in Philadelphia. Then, in 2009, Denver signed Dawkins to a 5-year pact, giving the organization 2 generational, albeit aging defensive backs to work with. Though the Broncos didn't record any winning seasons during the 3 years of Dawkins and Bailey together, they did win the AFC West in 2011. And both men continued their Pro Bowl levels of play. The partnership between Dawkins and Bailey ended when the former retired in 2012. Deion Sanders and Richard Dent. One more entry for primetime because he not only deserves it, but he also had the honor of playing with another NFL icon that you probably forgot about. Hall of Fame defensive end Richard Dent was a mainstay on the Chicago Bears' legendary defense that propelled the franchise to a Super Bowl 20 title in the 1985 season. The 4-time Pro Bowler returned to the Windy City for 1 more year in 95, then spent 1 season in Indy in 96 and 1 last season with Philly in 97. But what about 1994? Did you know that Dent spent that 1 year with a star-studded 49ers team that featured Sanders, Jerry Rice, and Steve Young? Dent wisely chose to chase a ring with the 49ers in 94, and they cruised to the franchise's 5th championship by crushing the San Diego Chargers in the big game. Steve Largent and Franco Harris. Largent was drafted by the Houston Oilers in 1976, but never played a game for the team. The Seahawks took a chance on Largent and acquired him via trade, and the rest is history. Largent became the go-to guy in Seattle's offense and spent his entire playing career with the organization, which spanned from 1976 to 89. The Seahawks were rarely a contender during Largent's playing days, due largely to a very lackluster supporting cast. However, he did get a chance to play 1 season with one of the game's all-time great runners and fellow Canton member, Franco Harris. The Steelers legend was a cornerstone in Pittsburgh's 4 Super Bowl championships during the Steel Curtain era. The 9-time Pro Bowler may be best remembered, however, for his miraculous, immaculate reception in the 1972 playoff game against the Oakland Raiders. The Steelers parted ways with Harris after the 1983 season, even though he surpassed the 1,000-yard rushing mark. The Seahawks picked him up for one last hurrah, but Harris was well past his prime at that point in his career. Harris had 170 rushing yards and no touchdowns in 8 games before ultimately retiring. Seattle actually went 12-4 that year and reached the divisional round, where they would fall to the Miami Dolphins. Ed Reed and J.J. Watt. Some years from now, I think all of us are gonna totally forget that Ed Reed's final NFL season was split with the Houston Texans and New York Jets. One of the game's premier defensive players and elite ball hawkers will always be associated with the Ravens, where he played 11 years from 2002 to 2012. His career resume was completed when he won a Super Bowl 47 ring with the Ravens in his final year with the franchise. But Baltimore decided to retool the roster, and so Reed left as a free agent to play for Houston in 2013. Reed joined a defense anchored by reigning Defensive Player of the Year and fellow future Hall of Famer J.J. Watt, giving Gary Kubiak and company 2 all-time great game records to lead his D. Or so we all thought. Reed struggled with his new team and suited up for just 7 games, failing to record a single interception or pass defense. He was released mid-season and picked up by the Jets, where he finished out his career. Still, it was kind of fun while it lasted, right, Texans fans? Junior Seau and Jason Taylor. Seau and Taylor were 2 of the NFL's top game-wrecking defensive players of their era. Seau, a 12-time Pro Bowl linebacker, spent most of his Hall of Fame career with the Chargers, and you'll probably recall him playing his final 4 seasons with the New England Patriots. And Taylor spent most of his tenure with the Miami Dolphins. He actually had 3 stints there, along with brief stops with Washington and the Jets. Taylor's first stint with Miami spanned from 1997 to 2007. As for Seau, he was traded to Miami in the 2003 offseason, thus giving Miami 2 perennial All-Pro stalwarts to lead their defense. Unfortunately, injuries limited Seau to just 30 total games during his 3 years with Miami, and half of them came in the 2003 season. The Dolphins released Seau after the 05 season, and he went on to join the Patriots for the final 4 years of his career. But hey, Taylor and Seau looked pretty dang good in those cool aqua uniforms together. But which current NFL legends would you love to see playing together? Join us in the comments section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.